Um, Good morning, welcome back. I'm Brian Koziel, Executive Director of the Virginia Housing Alliance. We are just catching up. Apologies if you were in the waiting room. We were waiting for the federal policy conversation to wrap up. Again, we're running about 10 minutes, well, about 14 minutes late now, to be precise. And so I see a fair number of folks joining. So we'll just give it another minute or two. I know folks will want to not miss any of our next session. All right. It is a great privilege and honor today to be able to welcome Susan Dewey, the Chief Executive Officer of Virginia Housing, to the conference. And I've actually been, had the privilege of getting to introduce Susan twice in the span of maybe 10 days or so. So welcome, Susan. I know that this is a little, break in from what we've done in years past, but I think that there are always some silver linings. So we get you all by yourself for the next 30 minutes, and I will be monitoring the chat. If there are any questions, I will elevate them up to you. So without further ado, the stage is yours.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and thank you, Brian. It is, as always, a pleasure to be with you today. Now, I am really sorry that I can't have a cup of coffee with you so that we can chat about what's going on, but it is wonderful that we're still able, with the help of the Virginia Housing Alliance, to be together at this conference, even though it's virtual. Although I guess we are all getting used to the virtual format, so it doesn't seem that unique. It's still a great opportunity to share knowledge, great ideas, new opportunities, and of course, the challenges that we all face together. We are excited that we can have this opportunity to dive a little deeper into the tax credit world. And that's a program, of course, that we all know is incredibly important in our rental housing. So during this time when we're all told we're safer at home, we know not everyone has a safe home. And more than ever, it's important that we work together to find and deliver meaningful, sustainable solutions now more than ever. So today I'm going to give you a few updates about the work that we're doing, both as an organization. We're now Virginia Housing. If you call us VHDA, though, we still answer, but also specifically in the tax credit arena. So, I'll start off a little bit by talking about the environment we're in. And we all agree that 2020 has been challenging, but there have been some extraordinary good things that have come out of that. It's been a memorable year for Virginia Housing. Actually, we set records in production. I know most of you are not in home ownership, but we've seen record production there, as well as in our rental program, and we've achieved a lot of firsts in program development. So one of the things, with your help, we were able to do is successfully complete the 2020 9% competitive round, and that went off really without a hitch, thanks to all of you and to the great tax credit staff. So one of the things that we've also, over the last 3 years, recognized is that we've issued 4% and 9% in the combination tax credits for 175 deals, which encompasses over 16,000 rental units for lower incomes and individuals and families for total development cost over $3.6 billion. Incredible work by all of you. And as we look at the deals that we're financing, we know, regardless of the income limits officially, that we're serving a lot at 40% of median income, mostly under 60%, some under 80. So we're really digging down and accomplishing great things in our programs. On the lending side, this year, rental production is still going strong. Last year, we had a record $811 million in production, and we're still seeing that going strong now, even despite COVID. And many of you are involved in those efforts, and I thank you. One of the things you may be aware of is that really for the first time, housing was pulled to the economic development table with Amazon in the application and now, of course, the announcement of its HQ2 up in Northern Virginia. And we were pulled in to help address the incredible housing needs because of the high costs up in Northern Virginia. And we pledged an additional $75 million in our REACH resources. And most of you know that's our resources enabling affordable community housing that enables us to really dig into the most critical housing needs across the Commonwealth. For example, this year alone, in addition to what I'm going to talk about with Amazon, we are putting over 100 million into REACH. So that's a lot of resources for critical housing needs. But on the Amazon front, we have started working. We had an advisory group that helped us, and our initial round was really targeted to rental in the communities closest to HQ2. To give you an example of what was accomplished, many of you are familiar with Parkstone Alexandria, a great example of what we were really trying to do. And that was in addition to one of the 5 million, what we're calling Amazon Impact grants. We also had an $83 million mortgage loan for the revitalization of a 30-year apartment building that offers 326 high-quality rental units in an area that's incredibly expensive. So our work is ongoing in this area as we prepare for the future rounds of that Amazon funding. Another area I wanted us to highlight today is efforts with public housing revitalization. And I think all of you agree, this is an area where we have to really make a difference, all of us working together, because the difficult housing situation in these old public housing communities. So we are putting together a truly coordinated effort, working with all of our partners. We want to bring everybody to the table. And that's, of course, the development community, public housing authorities, the residents in the community, also at the table as we determine how to move forward with a lot of this effort. We partnered with VACADO, which is the Virginia Association of Health and Community Development Officials, and that includes all the public housings across the state. And what we wanted to do was to make sure this was really a data-driven effort. So we did a survey and follow-up efforts to determine what the capital needs were. And the assessment showed that there's a growing capital backlog estimated at almost $700 million, a price tag that's driven up by these older, large public housing communities and the significant resources that are needed. So one of the first things we're doing is putting together a specialized team of Virginia Housing staff that's going to really be dedicated to working with the public housing authorities and the communities to really directly engage and identify the priority needs, leverage resources, and build skill sets in this area. So we have set aside a large amount in our REACH resources, and we will be determining how best to utilize that with everybody's help. As you know, in the tax credit program, the local housing authority pool operates a little differently from the other pools. But this year, it was one of the most oversubscribed pools in the program. So we are excited about the fact that we were able, our board did award all of the eligible local housing authority pool projects tax credits. And that's a great thing. It also, though, of course, as you know, means that there's a smaller pool of credits that are then available as we move forward. So the good news is that we're seeing a lot of usage of the 4%, the hybrid 9.4s in our tax credit program. So we're hoping to stretch our resources as much as we can. To give you an example, we're currently working with public housing developments in Richmond, Norfolk, Newport News, Petersburg, Hopewell, Charlottesville, and we're in discussions with all of the housing authorities and their partners on what we can do. Now, I want to pivot, speaking of needs, and talk about some efforts we're doing on reporting needs and hopefully solutions to meet our housing needs. One of the first thing is a study that was we moved forward with the help of many of you. We're on our advisory group, and it was pursuant to Legislative House Bill 810, which was Delegate Bourne's bill. And this was for us to look at the possibility of an opportunity state housing tax credit. So we didn't have a lot of time because of the deadlines. You know, we first had the COVID uncertainty, but then we wanted to make sure we met the deadline of September 1st. So with your help, we were able to put together a report that went to the governor, and it has two proposals that are viable for a rental tax credit. And it even identifies the possibility of a home ownership tax credit moving forward. So these are both powerful tools. We will all work together to see how that moves forward. But I know I can count on this group is going to be a fan of having those resources available. The one we're working on right now, and my partner, Eric Johnson, will probably talk more about this tomorrow when he gives an update on DHCD, but we do have House Bill 854, which was Delegate Murphy's bill. And this is a really broad housing study, very data-driven. And we did get an extension, so we now have until January 2022. We already have identified an advisory group of stakeholders to work with us on this. And we're fortunate that Housing Forward Virginia is going to do a lot of the data analysis work with us, and they'll be working with a steering committee that we have developed from DHCD and Virginia Housing. So it's a lot of requirements in that study, and we've even added to it because after the General Assembly left, of course, COVID hit, so we need to address the impact of COVID, as well as we need to address the real issues around racial inequities and social justice that have come out, particularly in our housing world. So stay tuned. And again, thank you for those that are helping us. And as I talk about racial justice, I want to really talk a little bit about inclusive communities and why diversity, equity, and inclusion are shaping the future of not only our organization, but I know all of your organizations are looking at this. And it's helping to inform our strategic priorities. And it's a good thing that there is a heightened attention on social justice issues, long overdue. We know without adequate affordable housing, communities of color and other underserved stakeholders face barriers to job opportunities, public transit, essential services like health and childcare, and many of the benefits that are enjoyed by wealthier households. So what do we mean when we say an inclusive community? Well, how we define it is offering a variety of affordable housing options with an adequate supply that promote greater economic integration through mixed income, mixed use development, and that take meaningful steps to deconcentrate poverty and increase economic mobility. If we can better serve historically marginalized stakeholders, which are communities of color, we can spark revitalization and wealth building in those communities too often left behind during periods when the economy is strong and growing, and most victimized by situations like we're in currently with COVID. This is why we're committed to strengthening diversity, equity, inclusion in all that we do as an organization, in our partnerships and our business practices, in our programs, in the community we serve, and with our own workforce. So let me just tell you, I mentioned COVID, but we are all doing, I think, an incredible job working together to address the difficulties that COVID has brought, particularly on the folks that we serve. So what have we been doing in Virginia Housing? Well, one of the first things we did was get you all on the phone. And thanks to Virginia Housing Alliance for what started off as weekly calls that got everybody together. And we were able to find out and work with our rental communities to look at what a forbearance program might encompass. So that was one of our first steps. Then we immediately put together a program that provided $12.5 million in grants through our REACH program. These went out to our delivery network, which included nonprofits, public housing authorities, our counseling agencies, Habitats for Humanity. Because as you know, when you're on a plane, the first thing they tell you to do is to put on your own mask. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure our delivery network was strong so that they could help others in this regard. So the other thing that we have now been involved with, as you know, Governor Northam has launched the Rent and Mortgage Relief Program with DHCD's oversight. And we were asked in late August if we would also partner to process applications through a landlord program. And I will say demand is so high for that. Just to give you an example, we have about 90 folks working on that now, because it is, of course, very important that we make sure we're getting this money out quickly into the right hands. So we pull people from all over the organization, as well as hiring contractors. And we are really dedicated to making sure that people that are hurting, not able to afford their rent, are getting some help. One of the things I wanted to let you know also is, this is hot off the press. We have decided we are going to use program funds to provide the compliance monitoring fees. So those will be waived for you all this year in calendar year 2020. Of course, our compliance folks are not able to get out as much, but we also, this would give you some relief in the fees that you have to pay. We're continuing to support our homeowners through online education programs. In fact, we had a record last year of 19,000 participants in free online homeownership education. We're offering rental education and look to you to help us figure out how best to get people to take advantage of that. And we have post homeownership education modules now to make sure people not only are able to purchase a home, but able to continue living in that home. A lot going on. The last thing I'll mention is I hope you all have taken advantage of the website we put together working with DHCD, stayhomevirginia.com, which is a place where all of the various resources are available for people to go in one place and find out whether they're a renter, a homeowner, a legislator, developer, or just a member of the public. So we are really trying to lay the groundwork for a future where safer at home is an affordable and sustainable option for everyone. So I want to pivot a little bit to some tax credit updates. Again, I know that's near and dear to your heart. Get ready. We are embarking on our QAP update process in 2021. Now, we were on the calendar to try to do that this calendar year, but as you know, when COVID hit, important part of those QAP updates is your input, and we weren't sure how we'd be able to do that. So we decided to wait until this year, and of course, that gives us the benefit of knowing more about the needs pursuant to COVID. So one of the things I'd like to let you know is that we are kicking that off. We'll have some virtual meetings in January that will give you some updates and also start talking about what potential changes are needed to the QAP process. So as that is discussed with you, our stakeholders, and ultimately our board, up to the governor's office, that will take effect in 2022. Now, we know there are several issues that are going to come up in this process that you probably feel are overdue to discuss. One is cost limits. And I know cost limits, they're critical, I believe, to the tax credit program nationally, but I know they can be challenging to many of you. So we'll be talking about that. Earlier, I mentioned the local housing authority pool and how that operates. Year 15 issues, how we can continue to make our housing affordable. The 9-4 hybrid program, I'll mention more about that in a moment. And ways to reduce penalty points and scoring challenges, because we want your projects to move forward. We just want to make sure that we have a fair and equitable program. So as for the 9-4 hybrids, currently they're worth 45 points, and I commend you all for taking advantage. I know that's a challenging program. Also, developer experience is 50 points. So we'll be looking at the QAP to make sure these incentives carry the right point structure, and it's a lot of points, and to make sure that that is in the best interest of the program as we continue to move forward. Now, one thing COVID has taught us is when we're at home, it's important that we have broadband access. And this is something that is really critical, not only for a lot of the day-to-day things that you do, but it's critical for jobs, education of ourselves and children, and health as well. So we are going to be really strongly encouraging you on one of the 3 broadband infrastructure options in the credit application. These are, if free Wi-Fi access is provided in the community room and such access is restricted to resident-only usage, you get 4 points for that. If each unit is provided with free individual high-speed internet access, that gives you 6 points. And if such broadband access is provided via Wi-Fi, that's 8 points. So I think we'll be looking, and we're already talking to DHCD because, of course, they're doing a lot in the broadband space to see what resources might be available. Also, in our last QAP, remember that we added in the accessible supportive housing pool, the ASH pool, that the requirement to demonstrate capacity for providing service enriched housing in the ownership structure through the CORES certification, which is offered through Stewards of Affordable Housing for the Future, SAFH. This certification requirement provided us some assurances that services for these properties will be adequately provided and appropriately provided. Also, the one thing I'm hearing quite a bit from many of you is the need for service-enriched housing. Of course, you always struggle with how to pay for that. So we'll be talking about whether we need to expand this capability in the tax credit program and what the overall impact on that will be for the low-income housing tax credit program. One more thing I'd like to share is we have some staff updates. First, we welcome, as an Associate Tax Credit Allocation Officer, Phil Cunningham. And many of you know Phil, but if you don't, this is a quote from JD. Phil's brilliant. That should say it all. And I encourage you to reach out to him. Also, another important staff update is in the legal area. Everett Gardner, who is brilliant as well, is taking on an expanded role as a senior counsel to our rental housing program. So I know you'll get a chance to work with him and enjoy that opportunity. So I want to really kind of close out with Opportunity 2024. And this is our strategic plan, something very near and dear to me. We took advantage of the success we had in our last 3-year plan, which we called Vision 2020. And we wanted to push ourselves even further. And that's what we're doing in this new strategic plan. It is a rare opportunity to, I think, raise the visibility and strength of our programs and priorities, to strengthen our partnerships as we together work on responses to COVID, to be bold, creative, more inclusive in the work that we do. So what we have done, and I want to thank all of you that have given us your input in this process through our advisory groups, is Opportunity 2024 does, I think, provide an opportunity for all of us looking to the future. And one of the first things we did that's new is a preamble to our strategic plan. We've not done that before, but this directly addresses the role of structural inequity in affecting outcomes for the most vulnerable households and communities. We have 3 major goals in our program. We also have an operational goal, but the 3 goals are addressing state housing needs by partnering with our housing delivery network, addressing unmet rental needs of low income and critical needs populations, and strengthening our first-time home ownership programs, particularly looking at how we can close that gap with communities of color. So what we're doing now is we're furthering the build out of these and attaching some measurements as we move forward. Of course, we'll be prioritizing the use of resources like REACH and the tax credits, really looking at the importance of our mixed use, mixed income program in rental, because we really do think that's a great way to deconcentrate poverty, and also public housing revitalization. I haven't talked as much about home ownership with this group, but we really are focusing on addressing racial barriers to home ownership. And one of the first things we've been doing is partnering with a lot of national and state organizations who are really working with us to try to identify and address the barriers in this area. And we will continue to focus on innovation. So important for us to think out of the box, whether that's construction, financing, new tools. We really got to continue to innovate to be successful. I know this is a little bit ambitious agenda for all of us going forward, but I have no doubt you're going to be great partners in that effort. You know, one of the last things that I think will be important in all of this is to continue to look for how we link to other key public policy issues. And I always say 2 things you have to have, and that's food and shelter. And we're in the shelter business. And we need to continue to show how important it is to link housing to economic development, jobs, health, education, transportation, all those other areas that sometimes steal the light from us, the spotlight from us. We need to show that we need to be at the center of all of those other areas. And moving forward requires deliberate, meaningful action to advance diversity, equity, inclusion in both our workplace and with our clients and the people that need our help. So we are focusing on urgent priorities. We continue to work with you. You know, we got a strategic plan, but everything's got to be flexible. And if anything COVID has taught us is we need to be able to adapt to a changing environment. So we will continue to do that as we get your input. Now, as I close out, of course, this is the season of Thanksgiving. I hope you all had a wonderful time, even if it might have been a little bit quieter occasion than we're all used to. But I'd first like to thank my staff at Virginia Housing. A lot of them are on this call in the rental program and the low-income housing tax credit program and legal and others. But I just am incredibly grateful for the opportunity to work alongside such a dedicated, hardworking, experienced staff. And a special thanks to the Virginia Housing Alliance. You know, Brian, along with his staff and board, have been doing an outstanding job pulling us all together for calls and special attention on key areas of focus. And also, you know, we can't do this alone. And I want to give many thanks to all of you for your partnership, your dedication. You push us, you challenge us, you hold us accountable, and you support us. So thank you so much. Our mission is a shared mission that shapes our strategy, is sustained by our partners, and driven by the people and communities we serve. Together, I know we will get stronger, we'll work together, and a key part of that is this type of conference where we can take full advantage of how we can further our use with tax credit resources. So thanks. and enjoy the rest of the conference. So I'll turn it back to you, Brian.
Great. Thank you so much, Susan. And congratulations to both Phil and Everett on your team. And thank you for all of your support, obviously, and leadership over the past year.
Thank you, Brian.
We do have one quick question if we have time. The economic outlook from our initial speaker, Danushka, indicates cost of building is on the rise due to lumber and labor costs, and lenders are increasingly tight with credit and underwriting. Virginia Housing has consistently demonstrated flexibility and programmatic requirements to help projects survive COVID. Do you feel Virginia Housing will need to find other solutions for these projects, either in concert with DHCD, in other new funding opportunities, your increased REACH funding, or credit allocations and addressing cost caps?
Absolutely. You know, our goal is to help our partners be successful. So whatever that takes, we want to listen, we want to hear the needs, we provide solutions. You know, I am encouraged by the new resources that are coming in at the state level through the Housing Trust Fund. I believe there will be new resources coming in at the national level as well. So we're here to do whatever we can. You know, the good thing in the way we're structured at Virginia Housing is that we have a great deal of flexibility. So we'll be listening and trying to do whatever we can. I know construction costs have gone up. That impacts the limits on the tax credit, the cost limits. So we're aware of that and really want to help you be successful.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time and your obvious flexibility for bearing with us as we continue to run a little bit over schedule. So I would like to go ahead and wrap up this session and invite you all to join us after a quick break at noon for VHA's annual awards ceremony. It's going to be a pretty spectacular event, so I hope all of you all can join us back there or back on the link, and look forward to seeing you all there. Susan, thank you, and thank you to all of your team as well.